Hello everyone, and welcome to the Midnight Archives. I'm Corbin. On this channel, I share tales of the strange and supernatural, many sent in by friends and listeners from around the world. Remember, it's not about whether these stories are true or not. What matters is that you sit back, relax, and let yourself be drawn into the mystery. Today's story is a submission from a listener. I'll be telling it in the first person. Now, let's begin today's story. The Toll of the Frostvagen. You think the long winter nights up here are just about the cold and the dark? The cold is a fact. The dark is a blanket. But on some roads, the dark gets heavier. It watches you. I learned this on the Frostvagen, the frost road that runs along the edge of the Storfjell Glacier. It's a road carved from ice and rock, a vital but lonely link between two mining towns. In winter, it's a ribbon of black ice under a sky the color of a bruise. This was during the Mørketid, the polar night. The sun hadn't shown its face in weeks. I was driving a load of supplies to the research station at Breivik, running late. My only company was the static hiss of the radio and the hypnotic swish of my windshield wipers against a light, freezing drizzle. About an hour into the drive, the headlights caught a shape in the road ahead. A lone figure, thumb out. A hitchhiker. Here, in this question mark. It was madness. But you don't leave a man to freeze. It's not our way. As I got closer, the details resolved themselves. It was a woman. She wore a thick, traditional Lusakofta sweater, the kind with the little white stars, and heavy woolen trousers. A fur hat was pulled low over her brow, but I could see her face was pale, her expression drawn but calm. She held out a hand, not desperately but patiently, as if she had been waiting a long, long time. I pulled over and shoved the passenger door open. "Get in! Quick! You'll freeze solid out there." She climbed in without a word, bringing a gust of air so cold it made the existing chill in the cab feel warm. She didn't shiver. She just sat, hands folded in her lap, her pack between her boots. "Tusen tak," she said, her voice soft but clear, like the chime of ice on glass. "1,000 thanks." "Where are you headed?" I asked, pulling back onto the glistening road. "Breivik," she said, staring straight ahead. "I am going home." We drove in silence for a while. The only sound was the tires on the road. I tried to make conversation. Brave or foolish to be walking the Frostvagen this time of night. She didn't turn her head. The path must be walked. It is the only way home. Something in her tone made the hairs on my neck prickle. I glanced at her. She wasn't just pale, she was colorless. Her lips were almost blue, and she didn't seem to breathe. No plume of vapor came from her mouth in the freezing cab. My heart began to beat a little faster. Old stories whispered in the back of my mind. Tales of the Dildegasten, the dead travelers who wander the roads, trying to complete a journey they never finished in life. I had to be sure. I fumbled with the heater controls. "Cold night, let me turn up the heat for you." "No," she said, her voice sharp for the first time. "The cold is familiar." "It is fine." I swallowed, my mouth dry. I looked down at her boots. Melted snow should have been pooling on the floor mat. Instead, the water dripping from her trousers was freezing into a thin, crystalline skin on the rubber mat. I knew then. I was not driving a living woman. I didn't know what to do. To stop and ask her to leave was unthinkable. To anger a spirit is worse than ignoring one. So I drove. I drove as if the hounds of Niflheim themselves were at my bumper. The silence in the cab was thicker than the ice on the windows. After an eternity, the lights of Breivik appeared in the distance, a faint, blurry glow in the relentless dark. "Here," she said suddenly, her voice returning to its soft chime. "You can let me out here." We were still a kilometer from the town's outskirts, right at the old, abandoned cemetery that served the original settlers. Its iron gate was sagging and crusted with ice. I stopped the truck. My hands were shaking on the wheel. She turned to me for the first time. In the dim light of the dashboard, I finally saw her eyes. They were the blue of deep glacier ice, ancient and full of a profound, weary sadness. "Tusen tak," she said again, "for seeing me home." She opened the door and stepped out into the night. I watched her walk, not towards the town, but through the iron gates of the cemetery. She didn't open them. She simply passed through them, and then she was gone. I sat there, my heart pounding, until a sudden tap, tap, tap on the passenger window made me jump out of my skin. I turned, expecting to see her again, but there was only the night. Then I saw it. Where she had been sitting, on the glass of the window, a perfect, beautiful frost pattern had bloomed. It wasn't random. It was intricate, deliberate. A perfect rendering of the Lusikofta sweater she had been wearing with its countless little white stars. I never told the researchers at Breivik. What would I say? But I know this. On the Frostwagen, you don't just watch for ice. You watch the passengers, and you always check your mirrors after they get out. Because sometimes the gratitude of the dead is the most chilling thing of all. And that concludes our story for tonight. If you've had a similar experience, or if you have an even more intriguing tale of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to share your story in the comments below, or you can send it to me directly. If your story's chosen, I'll be honored to narrate it here for everyone to hear. Thank you for listening. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.